All right, everyone. So in our previous video, we had reviewed cortisol. We had talked a little bit about how you would induce it, how you want to keep it lower throughout the night, and try to prevent things like spikes by focusing on your five senses and also trying to reduce internal and external stress. For more information, definitely go check out those videos to get more detail about how you can work with cortisol in the body to make sure that when you want to wake up and be productive, it's useful. Now in these videos, in this video and the next three videos, we're going to be reviewing the things that act on melatonin. There are a couple of things that are extremely important that act on melatonin, two of which are going to make almost 80% of that spike. And so the first one we're going to focus on right now is light. So when we talk about light, our first and most important relationship to light really comes down to sunlight. And when we think about sunlight, we think about the different wavelengths that it emits on us. And during the daytime, when we are in our productivity mode, based off of our circadian rhythm, we are really getting what we call blue wavelength light. And so the more blue wavelength light hits us and hits our face, for example, and our eyes, the more it goes back to our pineal gland and it helps suppress melatonin. Melatonin, which is, as we know, the boss for custodial services and sleep. So throughout the day, that sunlight keeps hitting, keeps reducing and suppressing that melatonin. Right around sunset, when we lose that extreme amount of wavelength, we have this big surge in melatonin if we had no other lights and no other impact. And about 2 hours after sunset is usually when you start to see the peak in melatonin, which allows you to go into your sleep mode. Now, of course, we have artificial light, which really comes into play. And that is a little bit about what I want to talk to you about here today. So the first place to look is things like tube lights and light bulbs that we would be using around the house. They don't produce as much of this wavelength. It's not going to be as bright unless you set the house in that mode. So a couple of simple things you can do when you're using these type of lights. Number one, as you go throughout the night, once we hit sunset and onwards, to try to work with your circadian rhythm, try to dim the lights in the house. Try not to have them so bright. And as you get closer and closer to your sleep time, really go for dimmer and dimmer lights. Similarly, in terms of a reading lamp, the lower that light quality can be, the better it would be, and the farther it can be from your face where it's not directly hitting your eyes, that also could be beneficial. Now, the same thing really goes for things like computers, cell phones, and tablets. These things do emit an array of wavelength. And of course, during the day, when we're trying to be productive, we do want to utilize them at their highest quality of light. But as we get closer to sleep time, the ideal case scenario is, of course, turning them off completely, besides all of the other things that come from things like social media or using the computer. But the main thing being that light quality hitting your eyes and acting on your melatonin. If you have to use these electronics for school or for any other means, another option for you is definitely using night mode. I would highly recommend using night mode so that at least, yes, the color quality is going to go, but the amount of impact on your melatonin is not as high. Now, the last category I leave then is television. So as far as we know today, television does not have a night mode because television is all about color quality, and we love that quality, of course. So when we talk about TV at night, of all the things on this list, I would say that would be the most detrimental because it's going to emit those wavelengths and it's going to cause that melatonin suppression. Definitely about 2 hours before going to sleep, really consider turning the television on. If you leave the television on for things like sound in the background, can you consider using something like an audiobook or reading or listening to music that's very light? We talked about conditioning and cortisol, so considering something like that. If it absolutely has to stay on in the background and there's really no other option, then definitely utilizing a face mask would be great so that it doesn't hit your eyes. I would say that would be one of the most important things. And another thing is setting a timer on the TV so that it does not run throughout the night in case the face mask moves or anything of that nature happens. So this is the introduction to how light impacts your melatonin. Next up, we're going to be talking about another huge category. So see you in the next video.